In New York, there is no civil rights museum.
Mm-hmm.
In New York, there's no museum specifically and solely dedicated to the Black experience. Go ask yourself why. We said, let's answer the question with a museum. And then we said, how do we make it distinctive from the many incredible civil rights museums that exist in America? And we said, let's talk about the Northern Black experience, the Northern civil rights experience, which is not elevated as much. And Black people have been in the northern part of what became the United States for many, 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 many years before the United States was even founded or declared its independence from Great Britain. We existed, we lived, we were part of the colonies.
Yes.
Because slavery started in North America in 1619. So that was really the animator and the genesis. As an organization with so much legacy and history, how can we think of new ways to tell our story? New ways to be an advocate? And a museum is a platform to educate. And that's what we intend to do.
What were the key learnings, do you think? And why are those so important?
Okay, well, I come from a strong workforce and economic development background, and my mentors back then said, if you're not hitting them with the digits and the money, then you're not going to get their attention. I really feel that the reason why the Common Council unhesitedly, unanimously approved this plan is because it started hard fact figures that, and this was the work done by you and your research fellows, making sure that we documented that the creatives collectively, the individuals, the businesses, the organizations, together reinvested $167 million back into the Kingston economy. Now, you start out with something like that, you get everybody's attention.
There is something about kind of culture which we can all relate to, but seeing things actually being made before your very eyes is transformative. It's that sense of the potential of humanity, of how art can actually communicate between people across time and across geography in very powerful ways. And for me, growing up as we were then in South London, this sense of how one can actually relocate oneself through culture into really kind of in very, very powerful ways. It made me want to not just study culture, but to go to museums, to read about culture, to study it, and through the lives of great artists and makers to discover the world. And that was the thing that really got into my bones, this idea of culture being a mechanism for connecting us to other places and other people, and additionally to other times.
Can you talk a little bit more about that culture is the glue, what that means?
You know, historically, culture, it's our collective story, it's our collective ethos, it's how we think, we move, we celebrate, and it is a way of remembering that we are transcendent. Arts are really about, it is the story of our own transcendence. And so in a place like Madison, the rhetoric, the context is Black male, medium build, between 40 and 45. It's about years old. It's about the dropout rate. It's about mass incarceration. It's about Black infant mortality rate. That if you didn't know Black people, you would think that we were only striving and that there was no one among us who knows how to thrive. And so for us, culture is that story that we've been here before. We've been through worse. It was how we tell our stories. It's how we encourage people. In Africa, it was the griots who would tell the stories, the great storytellers, because you want the stories because it makes you feel a part of the larger piece of things. Culture is that story.
They needed to engage broadly with the arts community. And I think that that's a great message for museums, which is it is wonderful to have a core collection and for that collection to be central to your work. But it's also critical from the point of view of really crossing over with audiences, getting audiences to make these associations. You know, one of the kind of mantras when I was first starting out giving talks in Los Angeles about why performance was important was to emphasize that that the disciplinary distinctions between arts weren't actually helping the arts. and that to be completely kind of linear within visual art, or to be even more specific in medieval painting, when you were running a museum, could create a lot of limited ideas about what that platform really was capable of. And I think that the new generation of museum directors really embraced this. Ann Hamilton
So could you tell us a little bit about the Mayan culture and why it was so important to have this museum feature this site?
Guatemala territory was Mayan territory since pre-Columbian time. Even my country, it's a majority of Maya people. But the thing is that for a lot of people, the Maya they are just in the same package, and it's not. I mean, we have very different cultures, very different languages. Some of them, they cannot even communicate with the others, although they are Mayas. So the importance of our museum and Caminaljuyu is that Caminaljuyu was the main Maya city during pre-Columbian times in the highlands. It was a reference in the mind. It was a metropolis in the whole sense of the word, like people coming from different backgrounds, different ethnic groups, different languages, different ideas, and that's what made the city so important. And Caminaljuyu is the first human settlement in the valley. So it is the origins of Guatemala City, and in a way, it proves the resilience of the Maya groups, because Caminaljuyu was here with all these developing ups and downs like any other culture. Then it decayed a little bit, but never disappeared. And then when the Spaniards moved the capital, they chose this valley because of the same exact reasons that the Mayas were already here, a fertile valley, bodies of water on the surface. It was really a good place to have a city. And we're still here. So that proves that the settlement is a success. And Museo Miraflores is here to show that, to be the link between the past, the present, and of course, with our sight into the future.
What are the challenges you face as the executive director of a major art museum?
We're in a challenging time, so I think it's challenging also in the field. We're in an era of change. Museums are facing seemingly existential issues and questions from multiple fronts, from challenging colonial roots to the assumptions of neutrality, leadership structures, who's being employed, the funding models, this greater scrutiny of donors, supporters, and our expanding role that museums are being asked to play in the community. And all of this happening under increased movement for improving labor practices and workload, and improving the mental health of not only our staff, but also our audiences. So I think that there's a lot of challenges that museums are facing right now. And so our challenge as museum leaders is to see where these priorities can intersect, where we can weave them together to hopefully tackle multiple issues at once, but also to see where to pick your battles, that this is to understand and accept these challenges, and maybe not always ask too much for ourselves.
What I thought was needed and why strategic planning was important as we look to the centennial, thinking about what we would become and how those many different parts would come together and be aligned to moving in the same direction. And that was something that I heard from my staff that they felt was very important. And so it seemed, with the centennial approaching, and actually with the pandemic making us rethink many things, it was a great moment. And having known the reputation of Florida Cultural Resources for a long time, and having worked in detail with you all when I was in Santa Fe, what I really was aiming for was someone to bring in a big picture of the potential of museums, and also someone who had a breadth of experience of museum subjects, because as you know, we deal with fine art, visual art, cultural materials, archaeology, natural history, whole raft of subjects here, and how to bring those together in a common direction was a really important part of the strategic planning.
Speaking of events and things that are happening in the UAE, the expo that's on right now, how do you think that World Exhibitions and Major Events has helped to represent Canada as an enviable international and our reputation overseas?
It's really an opportunity for a country to showcase what it stands for, and also to showcase its reputation so that anyone who comes to our Canada Pavilion can see, hear, touch, and really experience what Canada is about. This expo actually is one of the largest expos in history in terms of its having attracted 191 countries. So it's almost like a mini United Nations here on campus, where you can go to international events and you can welcome all kinds of international visitors to your pavilion. But really, it's people come to your pavilion to see what you've designed, how you've interpreted the world, what you stand for. And our pavilion this year, of course, with great thanks to Lord Cultural for designing our public presentation, really articulates our vision, which is the future in mind. So really leveraging diversity as our strength, coupling that with the great innovation that Canada is very proud of, and leaving a very positive imprint on the world.
And welcome to the third episode of Culture Break. Sorry, it's the series. I gotta start again.
Hi, I'm Yvonne Tang. I'm Director of Visitor Experience at Lord. I got to start that again.
Do that again.
Like,
I must remember what I do.
I will start again. All right.
Yeah, she promised she'd edit out all the beginning chapters.
The coffee talk.
Yeah, exactly.
We're done. I don't know. I hope they can.
I'm gonna stop recording.
Andrea, do we need anything else? Do we miss
Okay,
anything?
no, that was perfect. Thank you so much. We have so much content. That's really excellent. We're gonna, our challenge is gonna be to cut it all down to 10 minutes. So that was great. Thank you so much.
Yay!
Yay, we did it. We got it.
Thank you. So I don't think I do well, goodbye. We're done with Culture Break. I don't think I do any.
No, just a thank you is great. That's it.
All right.